What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Conversational Pace. I'm Brett Hornig, and this is my co-host, Finn Melanson. We review shoes, and today we have a shoe that we never thought would ever exist, ever. I don't know about you, Finn, but I thought Altra was going to die on the hill of zero drop, but they went around and surprised us with a 4 millimeter drop shoe, the AltraFWD Experience. And I'm pretty sure the ultra forward part, FWD, that is one word.
They certainly didn't move backward with this shoe.
Maybe at the running event next week, we'll ask some of the people what the origin of the AltraFWD Experience name is, because that might be the worst part of the shoe is the name.
I think I'm in love.
It's I can't tell if I'm in love with the shoe or if I'm just like shocked because it's nothing that I expected it to be. So it was like the bar was very low, and now we have this. But before we go into the review, a little disclaimer that these shoes were provided to us by Ultra and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like the product or not, because we want to keep these shoe reviews authentic and beneficial for you, so no one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. AltraFWD Experience, $140. My pair came in, this is a size 10, a US size 10, 8.7 ounces, 245 grams, 28 millimeters in the forefoot. And for the first time ever, we have a different heel stack from an Ultra shoe. So we're going 28 forefoot, 32 millimeters in the heel, making for a 4 millimeter drop. And it's definitely noticeable. I mean, I have two other Ultra shoes here. I've got the Torin and the Ultra Outroad. Both are zero drop shoes. Throwing those on and then throwing this on, this definitely feels like a 4 millimeter drop shoe. Moving on to the materials, the upper is a very simple, just one piece engineered mesh upper. There's a little bit of additional fabric in the toe box just to give it some shape. A little bit of pattern. It's hard to see with the black colorway. A little bit of patterning going on with the mesh. I think it's mostly just design cues. It doesn't seem like there's any additional overlay or anything. Very classic tongue. It's just stitched in at the bottom, not gusseted or anything like that. Kind of a, I don't know, light to medium amount of padding. We'll go light padding for it. Like there's definitely some foam in there, but it's not thick by any means. There's kind of there's two bubbles of foam around each side of the Achilles, and that makes up the majority of the padding in the heel cup. Very similar to what we've actually seen in some of the racing shoes. So some of those shoes with very, very thin material around the heel cup that don't do a full ring of foam. They just do little pads. This AltraFWD Experience has that as well. There is no plastic heel counter. It is a soft heel cup, so it's not rigid. The midsole is a very basic compression molded EVA. It's like Ultra's kind of most, I mean, it's like their budget foam, basically. It's foam. There's just one big slab of it. Little bit of forefoot rocker. One thing that they did do with the foam was they wrapped it up very high around the side of the heel. You know, we got that.
Do you know why?
I think it's mostly for stability. I mean, it's interesting from a road shoe standpoint. I would actually love to see these design cues in Ultra's trail shoes because it really keeps the heel from sliding around. I appreciate that it's there. I think it eliminated the need for the plastic heel counter. So, Hoka does this with pretty much every shoe. This one's almost even more extreme. It didn't, I couldn't feel the edges of the foam or anything from the inside of the shoe. So I feel like it was the right thickness and density. But, that's why the foam wraps up around the heel. It kind of gives you that bucket seat lockdown type effect. The outsole is, again, it's just Ultra's in-house, like blown rubber outsole. Might be like carbon rubber. It's kind of hard, but it's pretty minimal. So there's quite a bit of flex grooves in the forefoot, which is going to help with the flexibility. It's not going to help a ton with durability, but we'll talk about durability in a sec. little piece in the heel, and then quite a bit of exposed EVA for a road shoe. It's I think it's probably fine, but that's really it for the materials. I mean, Ultra kept it pretty bare bones for this shoe, and I think I actually really like it. Finn, what kind of running did you get in for this one?
I just wanted to mention one quick thing about that outsole because ever since doing conversational pace, I've started to read the tech specs on shoes. I didn't realize that those bands you see on the outsole are meant to correspond with the bones in your foot.
Yeah, I know. This is supposed to be like the human foot metatarsal thing. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. My first metatarsal and my fifth metatarsal are not this far apart. Maybe for some people, and that's probably the beauty of the Ultra width, but I do not have a very wide foot, so I'm not matching the metatarsal rubber placement.
But yeah, I ended up getting a whopping 114 miles in this shoe. I think it's the shoe that we've reviewed that I've been the most stoked with since the Speedland GS Tam. I also have a trend historically with Ultra where I either never wear them, or if I come across a particular model, I wear all of them. Like before you knew me in 2020 and really through mid 2021, I think I wore 15 pairs of the Ultra Duo. So I tend to OD on particular models or ignore the rest of the line. But yeah, 114 miles, almost all road. I did take it for one run on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail just to see how it did on relatively mellow, non-technical trail. But yeah, almost all of my miles just kind of bopping around Salt Lake City on recovery days.
Well, I appreciate you getting in, the over 100-mile mark. I only got up to 60 in these shoes, and it's not because I didn't want to wear them. I'm just coming back from a knee injury, so I just didn't have a lot of the mileage has been very low the last few weeks. So, but within those 60 miles, there were a ton of short runs. So normally under like full training block load, like I'm getting 60 miles in like, 5 runs. This was actually like 12 or 13 runs to get 60 miles. So I actually got to, put the shoe on, lace it up, go for a run, go through the motions quite a few times, even if it wasn't as many miles. But I did about half my miles on the treadmill, actually. I did a couple like short hikes on pretty mellow trail when I wasn't running. And then since I have started running, it's been a mixture of road, dirt road, paved, and a little bit of buffed out single track. So I've kind of taken it in all the places that this shoe should be okay. I didn't take it like on any technical trail or take it out in the mud or anything because I I think we both know it's like you could probably do it, but it wouldn't be good just
Yeah.
because this outsole is pretty flat. What did you think of the fit and the length, especially in comparison to, some of the other ultras that you've worn?
Yeah, I think, well, in comparison to other ultras I've worn, this is a little bit snugger of a toe box, I would say, and then also like a much more highly cushioned heel collar. Like on the Duo, I recall it was super flimsy. There was almost no like padding there, so that was interesting. In general, like if you are accustomed to ultra, I would say this is a much lower volume toe box. I don't know if that was intentional or if you can speak to that, but that was one of the first things I noticed.
Yeah. So Ultra, I think 2 years ago, maybe one, they switched up their, I don't know, marketing verbiage. So their shoes across all of their whole line, they have 3 different widths now. They have the original fit, standard fit, and slim fit. The
Okay.
original fit is what all of the old school ultras are made of. So like we're thinking like your Lone Peak, your Olympus, I think your Torin, the Provision. Those are all your original fit, which are those super wide ones that people fell in love
Mhm.
with. Then you have like your Ultra Timp, your Ultra Escalante, uh, the Forward Experience. Those fall into the standard fit, which is going to be more of like your actual D medium width, heel, midfoot, and then just square off the toe box. Because I feel like this very much felt like a regular width shoe. Even like across like from the midfoot to heel, it feels like a Brooks Ghost in terms of the width. They're like a New Balance 880 in terms of the width, like nothing special. It's just got a square toe box.
Yep.
And then Ultra has also introduced the Slim Fit, which is almost like a slightly narrower fit, just with the squared off toe box. Those ones are the ones that fit my foot the best. That's like their I forget the name of their super shoe is that Slim Fit. The Ultra Outroad, their door to trail shoe, that's a slim fit, so that's why that one fit my foot so well. The standard fit, I'm now learning, at least this one, I thought it was very comfortable. I definitely had quite a bit of additional room in the forefoot, but not so much that it felt like I was running around with trash bags attached to my feet. It was still very comfortable, especially with the security around the midfoot and the heel. So for me, this was one of the better fitting ultras. If a shoe like the Lone Peak is
Yeah.
on the snug side for you, this is going to be way too tight,
Yeah, for
unfortunately.
sure.
Yeah, so I guess for Ultra, this does fall kind of right in the middle. I thought the length of it was spot on. I was a
Yeah.
10 and it felt just right, in comparison. The last Ultra that we did was the Mont Blanc Boa, which ran long. I think we both went down a half size for that one. Did you get a 12 for,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
true to size.
felt good.
Yeah, I would also say just on step in, it's one of the more out of the box ready shoes I think we reviewed. I was trying to think back
Yeah.
to a comparable one. For me, the Brooks Caldera was also like very much like step in, ready to run 20 miles if you want. Not many complaints about the upper. One thing that I thought was interesting because it seems like a lot of the shoes we review, there's like one uniform piece of upper material, and with this one, I noticed the upper like it's slightly thinner at the toe box, but it kind of thickens as it works back.
Yeah, I think actually you're right. I didn't really notice that. I think that's just mostly because you need the extra durability and the strength around the sides of the foot.
Yeah.
But across the top of the toe box, you don't need all that extra, stronger mesh. So they can afford to make it a little bit thinner. And that's kind of the beauty of the engineered mesh is they can change the density throughout the weave of the whole upper. Whereas back in the
The
day, they would have to use a thinner piece and then stitch it in.
the other thing I would add, and this is again, I'm mostly comparing to the Duo because that's my frame of reference, but with the old Duo, you tended to get a lot of like Achilles irritation because they didn't have the flared heel cuff on this shoe. You can kind of see it as you're holding it. There's that flared heel cuff, and it really helps avoid irritation.
Yeah,
So
I
I like
agree.
that I love that they had that. I also like that there was no heel counter there, which is cool too. So honestly, like on the heel side of things, it added a lot that I felt the Duo was lacking and just made for a really comfortable ride.
Yeah, I like what you said too about the step in feel. This is by far the best step in feel of any Ultra I've ever put on. Like the material actually didn't feel like it needed any breaking in. A shoe this year that I enjoyed the step and feel of equally as much was the Hoka Clifton, where I put that on and
Yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm ready to go. I can do a long run in the shoe. That's how I felt a bit this one. The only thing that maybe held me back from like taking this for 20 miles out of the box was it's got a decent amount of foam, 28, 32 stack height, but it's definitely not like Hoka Clifton mushy. It's soft, but it's definitely still has a little bit of responsiveness to it. I didn't think it was a mushy shoe by any means. So, and the other thing too is, it's got a little bit of a rocker, but not
Mm.
too much. So it's not really helping your foot very much, which is good and bad. So like one of the pros for that is like it actually forces me to use my foot and it still encourages more efficient biomechanics, from the lower drop, slightly firmer feel. But at the same time, like it's not helping me run any faster. So that's kind of where I've slotted it into like the training shoe arsenal of like taking it on the days where I'm not worrying about speed, but I'm, practicing biomechanics and just being an efficient runner.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that helps with that is the weight of the shoe. This is a very lightweight shoe.
Super light.
Yeah, which just makes it fun. I mean, it makes it fun to put on and just go out and start jogging in it because it really is one of those shoes that full on just disappears on your foot. And I feel like we haven't, in the age of higher stack maximal shoes, there aren't that many shoes that are just disappearing on your foot anymore, I feel like.
I know this sounds weird, but the first time I put on the shoe, I felt like Anton Krupicka in that Western States movie where he's like doing the barefoot in the grassy park drills, and it
This
just
is the
automates good cadence.
this is the new barefoot. 28 millimeters of old school EVA. So for you across your running, where did you find that this shoe worked the best? And that could be like terrain or types of runs.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, in retrospect, I can probably tell you more where I wish I had inserted it, and I actually think that like when I initially thought of this shoe, I thought of it as a shoe that I would take out on my easy days to sort of like protect my joints, protect my feet, and just get easy miles in.
Mm-hmm.
But every single time I put the shoe on, it was like nudging me to run faster, and I think a lot of that has to do with like you know the pretty aggressive sort of rocker to it and how it kind of always puts you in that like pitched forward position. But I could totally see myself doing like a lot of like long steady state runs in this shoe and feeling pretty good about it, and also not feeling like anything about the shoe held me back from an efficiency standpoint of running faster. So I wish I had thought of this shoe as more actually like a not fully high performance,
Mm-hmm.
but a performance shoe that I could do like longer, speedier stuff at.
Okay, so I wrote down almost the exact same thing for where I felt that this shoe worked the best. I
That's because I've
said,
been trained in the Brett Hornig way.
dude, I think yeah, you're starting to figure it out. Like I'm so proud of you. um, I said that I'm not using this shoe on my true recovery days, like the days after a really hard workout or long run. I'm not going to use this shoe. But all those other easy days, like the day after that, which might be an easy day that's slightly longer, but my legs are a little bit fresher, I'm going to take this shoe on that. I'm probably not going to take this shoe on my longest long runs. We're assuming like training for a marathon, not so much like 100 mile, like we're talking a roadblock. I'm probably not going to take this on my longest runs, but like the medium length long runs, I'm absolutely taking this on. And then I wouldn't hesitate at all to pull this for effort-based workouts. So if
Yeah.
I'm doing like a fartlek workout where I'm just running at a particular effort, or even a heart rate, and the pace doesn't actually matter, I would totally pull the shoe for that. For actual race paces, now that they're just all my race paces are so skewed on the roads because of the Nike Alpha Fly, like I have to work out in a super shoe or I just have no chance of hitting those paces anymore. But for effort-based workouts, this is a great shoe for that.
You might find this interesting, and I only noticed this after the fact as I was prepping for this review, but typically my cadence is around 160 almost in any shoe. And every time I had this forward experience on, my cadence was somewhere between 165 and 172, like 5 to 10 points higher.
I think a reason for that is because this shoe isn't super mushy. You feel the ground a little bit more. It forces you to run a little bit prettier. You can't just stomp into the ground because then it just doesn't feel as good. So that's one of the reasons why a shoe like this is great to have in the rotation,
Mm.
because it does help keep the biomechanics kind of tightened up. And, that's, to me, that's a great training tool. Is there anything that you would like to see improved or tweaked for like the next version of this shoe?
Yeah, I think I misconstrued this shoe when we first received it, and I thought of it as a recovery shoe. And my first thought was like, I'm not sure I appreciate the firmer midsole, but as I put more miles in the shoe, I realized that it's not quite a recovery shoe, and the firmer midsole makes more sense. You were saying earlier that this is sort of like their cheap foam, and I have had a chance just through our mutual friend Jimmy to run in the Vanish Carbon a bit. I think in some of those other shoes where it has more to their I think it's called the Ego foam. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Ego Max is
Ego
one of
Max or
them.
something
Like
like
this
that.
is just the
So
Ultra Ego foam, and I think there's an Ego Max, and then there might even be one above that.
so if we added better foam to it, I guess the trade-off is like it's bouncier, but it's heavier, and part of the brilliance of the shoe is it's lightweight, and that makes it fun. So there's that trade-off. And then I guess the only other one I would say is like the outsole rubber, maybe more of it. Like I'm at 114 now on the shoe, and I am seeing some wear on the outsole
Yeah,
relatively early. So just those two. I love the shoe though. Other than those two things, I love the shoe.
Dude, Finn, I'm about to let you just fly the coop and just do these reviews by yourself. Um, I said I don't really care if they do. They don't need to change anything with the upper. I would love to see a slightly more energetic midsole foam. Like this midsole foam is fine, but if they threw in a like a nitrogen infused EVA or a P-Bax, a super foam, well, if you added P-Bax to this, it would get even lighter, which would be nifty. But I totally agree with you though. I would love to see a slightly more energetic foam in this shoe.
What were you saying before the review about this could be a trail shoe? Like talk about that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, we'll be at the running event next week. We'll see, but I would love to see maybe a slightly more structured upper, but I would say optional. But let's throw the short lugged Vibram light base outsole from the Ultra Mont Blanc on this shoe and call it a 4 millimeter drop, door to trail, just absolute crusher.
Mm,
If they threw a light trail outsole on this, this would immediately become one of my favorite do everything trail shoes.
yeah, agreed.
Um, but yeah, I think really just like slightly more fun midsole foam would be an awesome update. I wish there was maybe just a more durable rubber that they could use instead of adding more rubber because that would kill some of the fun of this shoe. But I agree. I have 60 miles on my shoe, even 30 of them were on treadmill, and I'm already seeing a little bit of wear. How do you feel? Well, I guess, with how light this shoe is and with how deep the flex grooves are, this clearly wasn't meant to be your super, super durable shoe. For $140, how do you feel about what you get?
Whew, yeah. So, and again, maybe we can do an update episode later about like our favorite shoes because I am going to try to take this to at least 200 miles, and I'll be really curious to see where it's at then. I'm always on this show going to stand for the average Joe who's looking for, a lot of mileage out of each shoe, and I'm super worried. So I actually think that the price point is it's attractive, but I think it's misleading because I actually think that per dollar you might get less value out of the shoe than you think you're going to get.
I agree. I think from a durability standpoint, we're not going to see this being very fun over that 250, 300 mile range. So value or dollars per mile, you're not, getting a ton there. Smiles per mile though, because of just how nice and fun this 8.5 ounce shoe is to run in for 250 miles. That helps with the $140. I think if this was in that 120 to 125 type range, this would be like a no brainer. I wrote down like three competitor shoes that came to mind. I know I had mentioned Hoka Clifton earlier, but that was mostly in step and field. The Clifton is much softer than this shoe. I would actually say the Hoka Rincon is much closer to the shoe because they both kind of are not very durable, very light, super fun. I also wrote down the Saucony Kinvara, and then I also wrote down the Topo Ultrafly, which I feel like the Topo Ultrafly is one of the closest shoes. Topo
Yeah,
does make a couple, you know, zero drop to 5 millimeter drop road
lower
shoes.
drop. Yeah,
Um, like they make one called the Spectre, but I didn't write that. I didn't put that as a direct competitor shoe because the Spectre does have a more fun midsole foam.
I've never worn it.
We're looking. Topo does have like a P-Bax based. They basically make this shoe, but in a P-Bax type foam, but it costs a bit more. So if you've liked some of the old Saucony Kinvaras and are wanting that squared off toe box, same with the Hoka Rincon, this 4 millimeter drop AltraFWD Experience might be worth trying out because I know for $140 we're right in that same price range as some of these you know competitor shoes.
Are there any other brands out there that would compete in this space with a lower drop, like wider toe box option, or is it pretty much like is Ultra pretty much just disrupting Topo in this area?
There's probably some even smaller, more niche brands, but it's been like, well, Saucony came out with the 4 millimeter drop shoe, I think before Ultra even existed as a brand. Same
Okay,
with Topo. So Saucony's always had their line of 4 millimeter drop shoes, but they're not a very squared off toe box. New Balance is the same way, where they've always had their like very minimal line of shoes. And a shoe that kind of is like competitor adjacent would be that Fuel Cell Rebel shoe, because that's, I think, a 6 millimeter drop. It's a much more lively foam, but it's very lightweight, very flexible, very simple. And that one's actually decent on the room in the forefoot as well.
Just imagining here. So if they did go the trail option, could they? So they could do the P backs, and that would be a lighter midsole foam, and then maybe just a slightly more aggressive outsole, and you'd have a really interesting trail model.
Yeah, going P backs would be interesting. I'd be curious if that's too responsive for the trail. Like I would want to try a version of the shoe that's just this shoe with like a boring foam and a trail outsole, because that might actually be the right amount of bounce on the trail. I would also though just love to feel a super foam or like a super critical foam version of this with a trail outsole, and just see how that does. It could potentially be amazing, you know. We'll see. Finn, is there any scenario where you're racing in this shoe?
There's no scenario. I think just in that trail scenario, things could get super interesting. But no, I think this is one of the first shoes we reviewed where I feel it very firmly fits inside a training environment. How about you?
I agree. I'm not doing any road races in this, and if I did any trail races in this, it would solely be because the trail race is so long that I'm, one, going really slow, so grip and lockdown doesn't matter as much, and two, I'm going purely for like a comfort based shoe. I have a hunch though I would probably then just be putting on something that's even more maximal, you know, for me personally. So like you, I don't think there's really a scenario where I'm going to race in it, but it's definitely still a shoe that I'm going to run in. Like I'm turkey trotting with the family tomorrow, and I'm throwing this on for the turkey trot, because I'm not racing the turkey trot. I am trotting the turkey trot, and this is a perfect turkey trot shoe.
I am highly encouraging Altra to send this shoe to your boy Scott Jurk, because I think a truce could be established after they get their hands on this shoe.
The page would just shut down because of they wouldn't be able to insult it anymore, because this is my favorite Ultra shoe that I have ever run in.
Mm.
And part of that probably is because it is 4 millimeter drop, but also it is supremely comfortable. What was the last thing? Oh, I did have the question for the audience was, did you think you would ever see Ultra step out of the zero drop category? And is there a particular Ultra model, like a zero drop Ultra shoe, that you would like to see come in the 4 millimeter drop form?
Well, do you buy that they have been allegedly thinking about this for 6 years, even pre VF acquisition?
I I believe that. I mean, I know they always said like zero drops the way, but like if you just look at the market trends and like who's selling the most shoes, why wouldn't they want a piece of that pie? It's the same reason why all the companies that weren't making maximal shoes started making maximal shoes when Hoka started dominating that segment. Even if they never believed in it before, they were like, "Oh, we should probably make some thick shoes, you know, to steal some market share from Hoka." So I totally understand Ultra could be thinking about going away from zero drop. It's just kind of like we had always said, like a very touchy subject. You know, got to figure out they had to figure out how to do it, and by just going with this announcement with a ludicrous name shoe, uh, the AltraFWD Experience, I feel like it's worth giving a chance for a lot of people. And if you do want to try these shoes out and your local run specialty shop doesn't have them, feel free to use our link below to purchase the AltraFWD Experience from our friends at Running Warehouse. Your purchase helps support the channel, allows us to keep creating shoe reviews like this. This will probably be the last review to come out for a couple weeks, just because next week we're going to be doing a lot of preview videos for what's to come in 2024. So stay tuned for that, and see everyone out there.